Have you ever been told that cutting a corner at work is just an acceptable risk? I have, and let me tell you, it's a phrase that still sends a shiver down my spine. It sounds so professional, so calculated, doesn't it? Like some brilliant minds in a boardroom crunched the numbers and decided that a little bit of danger was worth the reward. But when you're the one on the ground, the one whose safety is part of that calculation, acceptable risk feels a whole lot different. Today, I want to share a story from my past, a time when I put my trust in those words and learned a lesson I'll never forget. This isn't just a story about a workplace accident, it's about the culture that allows them to happen. It all started a few years back. I was working a job I genuinely liked. The team was great, the work was challenging, and for the most part, things felt right. We were in the manufacturing sector, dealing with heavy machinery and strict deadlines. Safety was, on paper, the number one priority. We had the posters, the weekly meetings, the bright yellow lines painted on the floor. We all knew the rules, backwards and forwards. But there's a difference between knowing the rules and living by them, especially when the pressure is on. The project we were on was a big one, a huge contract with a tight deadline. Management was feeling the heat, and that heat rolled downhill as it always does. Little by little, we started to see the official procedures get flexible. A safety guard on a machine that slowed down production? It was temporarily bypassed for a high-priority run. The mandatory two-person lift for a heavy component? Well, if the other guy was busy, one person could probably manage it if they were careful. It started small. Each shortcut was presented not as a violation, but as a practical, temporary solution to keep the line moving. I remember questioning one of these changes. It involved a lockout-tagout procedure. For those who don't know, that's a critical safety step where you completely de-energize a machine before doing maintenance, ensuring it can't accidentally start up. We were told to skip a few steps to save time. I went to my supervisor, handbook in hand, and pointed out the discrepancy. He just sighed, clapped me on the shoulder, and said those exact words. "Look, I get it. But corporate needs this shipment out. They've assessed the situation, and right now, this is considered an acceptable risk." Acceptable risk. He said it so calmly. He made it sound like I was the one being unreasonable, the one holding up progress over a minor technicality. And the crazy thing is, I believed him. Or at least I wanted to. Everyone else was going along with it. Nobody wanted to be the nail that stuck up and got hammered down. So I bit my tongue and got back to work. We all did. We became a team of risk-takers, not by choice, but by a slow, creeping erosion of our safety standards. We got faster, we hit our targets, and for a while it seemed like management was right. The risk was paying off. The day it all went wrong started like any other. The pressure was high, as usual. We were working on one of the main conveyor systems, which had been acting up. According to the book, this was a full shutdown, multi-hour repair job, but we didn't have multi-hours. So, the acceptable risk plan was put into effect, a rolling stop, a quick fix, with a spotter watching the main power switch. I wasn't working directly on the repair, but I was nearby, loading materials onto a feeder line. My partner for the day was a guy named Dave. Dave was one of the best, experienced, smart, and a family man who talked about his kids all the time. He was the one assigned to do the quick fix inside the conveyor housing. The space was tight. The procedure was rushed. The spotter, who was supposed to be watching the power, got distracted by another urgent request from a supervisor down the line. It only took a second. A miscommunication, a wrong signal, a system somewhere else being brought online that caused a power surge in our section. Nobody knows the exact trigger. All I know is that one moment, everything was loud and normal, and the next, there was a sound I will never, ever be able to unhear. A mechanical crunch and a human scream, cut short. The machine, which should have been locked out and completely dead, had cycled. Just once. But once was all it took. The chaos that followed is a blur of shouts, alarms, and the frantic, useless rush of people trying to help. But it was too late. Dave was gone. He wasn't just injured, he was gone. In the blink of an eye, a good man, a father, a husband, was sacrificed for a production target. The silence that fell over that factory floor after the initial panic was the most profound silence I have ever experienced. It was heavy, filled with guilt, horror, and the sickening, crystal-clear realization of what had just happened. The aftermath was a corporate nightmare. Investigators came, production was halted, for weeks. The very thing management had been so desperate to avoid by cutting corners. The company was hit with massive fines, lawsuits, and a public relations disaster. The supervisor who uttered the phrase "acceptable risk" was fired, along with several others up the chain. But none of that brought Dave back. None of it erased the image from our minds. The cost of that acceptable risk turned out to be infinite. It was a man's life. It was a family shattered. It was a group of co-workers who would carry that trauma with them forever. I couldn't work there anymore. I couldn't walk past that conveyor belt. I couldn't hear the hum of the machinery without my heart pounding in my chest. I left the job, and it took me a long time to trust another workplace environment. The experience taught me the most brutal lesson of my life. There is no such thing as an acceptable risk when it comes to a person's life or limb. It's a lie. It's a dangerous, seductive lie that prioritizes profit over people. It's a way for companies to gamble with the lives of their employees without having to sit at the table themselves. When someone in a position of authority tells you a safety violation is an acceptable risk, what they're really saying is, your safety is less important than this deadline. They're saying, we are willing to bet your well-being that nothing will go wrong. And they're not the one who has to pay if they lose that bet. You are, or your family is. If you're ever in that situation, please speak up. Be the difficult one. Be the one who stops the line. Your life or the life of your co-worker could depend on it. No job, no paycheck, no production target is worth your life. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. I share this story not for sympathy, but as a warning. The next time you see a shortcut being taken, or you're asked to bypass a safety rule for the sake of efficiency, think of Dave. Think about the true cost of that acceptable risk. Don't just walk away. Report it. Talk to your colleagues. Create a united front. An anonymous tip to a safety authority can work wonders. Remember, a safe workplace is a right, not a privilege. Protect yourself and look out for each other. Because at the end of the day, we're all we've got. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there.